70s were on some shit, though.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Lewds, man. Fucking lewds.
oh, God. I bet they were nice.
I bet.
I bet they were lovely. In fairness, my only experience of them is in Wolf of Wall Street. And that film presents people on Wall Street as rounded characters instead of demons.
There's a lot of drugs you hear about in pop culture, but you might not have tried yourself, that they're represented as great, but with some kind of downside. Quaaludes are one of those things that you only ever see represented as, they were the greatest shit in the world, there was nothing wrong with them, they were fucking wonderful.
It's because we can't get them anymore. That's the thing. Like, we've rose-colored glasses Quaaludes. And it is wild, too, because, like, in the pantheon of, like, addictive substances, or not addictive, drugs. Not necessarily addictive substances,
No,
just drugs.
Just drugs.
You don't come across a lot of them that you can't still get somehow.
Yeah, that has always fascinated me, because I think the first time I even heard about them... No, I've heard the name come up, but the only time I saw anything mentioned about them in detail was indeed that Wolf of Wall Street movie. And my partner at the time was... I think she explained to me that they just don't exist. There's a whole chemical makeup that doesn't exist anymore and can't exist.
You would think that someone would find a way to make them, and, like, to have the marketing thing of, I'm the one person who's bringing back Quaaludes would be like, it would set you apart from your competition.
Oh, and I tell you what, they'd go down in history as simultaneously humanity's greatest hero and monster. It'd be amazing. But unfortunately, we live in a post-lewd world.
Oh, there's lots of lewds out there, but...
Well, not with all the credit card companies stamping down on them. We're in a double post-lewd world, everyone. This is... Oh, by the way, if you are... I don't know why I'm going to sit here and dress down the credit card companies as if they're going to listen to me. Yeah. But, if you are listening, Mr. Bank Manager, grow up. Some of the... censorship of sex work is some of the most infantile shit in the world. Grow up. Fucking... Anyway.
Well, but
right?
we can't allow, minorities... who are a lot, like a tremendous amount of the workers in sex work being, cultural minorities in the West. We can't allow them to control their own destiny at all. So...
Well, no. What we need to do as a society, and this will definitely work and be healthy, right? What we need to do is make sex work completely unviable and push people out of sex work because it is bad to do sex work. But then if they get another job and we find out they used to do sex work, we fire them from that job. That's the way forward as a society.
It's broken my brain that I've just realized the way that we treat people who used to do sex work and now do different jobs is the way that the fucking Japanese government treats ex-Yakuza.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
It's the same fucking problem, and that's weird that I've just gone, oh yeah, you're treating sex workers the same way that Japan treated ex-criminals that tried to turn their life around on the straight and narrow. It's the
it's the same kind of arrangement as, prisoners here. Like, you any job application that you file here in the United States includes a question asking whether or not you have been convicted of a felony. It is something that is used to determine hiring. And people are excluded on that basis all the fucking time. Because, again, it's just a matter of keeping people who could conceivably, be a problem for quote-unquote society oppressed.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, the best way to deal with a problem is to make sure that the problem can never be fixed.
That's right.
If you have been rehabilitated, make sure that you force them to habilitate again, because there's literally no benefit in being rehabilitated in a place that will punish you forever.
But if the problem goes away, who will we fearmonger about?
Well, I would suggest the Nazis, but no one's scared of them anymore. Apparently,
I was going to say I don't think it's fearmongering with them.
No, I think it's just mongering at this point. I think what people are doing at the moment is Nazi mongering. By the way, right? I do need to point out, because now what I'm about to say is going to sound inappropriate. What we just did, that political tirade that spanned multiple thorny issues, was spurred by me about to talk about the fact that I have a plastic shoe shine boy on my desk called Ding-A-Ling. I was going to point out that a little while ago I discovered a 70s toy line, a line of robots called the Ding-A-Lings.
Oh, is this the one where the officer has like a clock that comes out and makes a boing sound?
Yeah, that's the spy. The spy has a camera.
Sorry, the spy. Yeah, the camera, that's it.
You see...
His fucking crotch camera.
Yeah, the 70s were a wild time. Some would tell you it's more innocent times, but anyone who would look at the results of Operation Yewtree will tell you otherwise. It was a sexual pest free-for-all back then, and I do have to wonder whether Ding-A-Lings is a product of innocence or knowing corruption. Not only are they called Ding-A-Lings, if I advise listeners, right, look it up. Look up on YouTube, just do Ding-A-Ling's toy commercial and watch 3 minutes of what I hope is accidental innuendo. It's not just Ding-A-Lings. There are multiple references to, like, the personal action pumper of the firefighter, and the spy who has a camera that bursts out of his crotch, and the camera in the commercial pans down and there's a sound effect that goes boing out of his crotch. There's loads of it. The shoe shine boy. I've got this one, right? I'd never heard of this toy line, and they're almost impossible to find, but I found one for cheap, and it's just... I don't know why I'm doing it in front of the microphone as if you can see it, but it's got a little button on his head, you press it, and he's just got like a little bit of cloth in his hand, and he just moves his arms up and down, right? Now, I consider myself a bit of an innuendo maestro. I'd have to work really hard to make the up and down motion that the shoe shine boy does with both of his arms look sexual. They nailed the camera angle in that commercial that made it look 100% masturbatory. And that's just the beginning. Actually, no, that's the second from the beginning. The beginning is Ding-A-Lings, then the shoe shine boy, then the action pumper, and then a whole bunch of other stuff. I do those commercial edits on my live streams, and I like to edit them sometimes to make them look rude. I just have to play that. So that's my media recommendation.
I'm learning about these in real time, and I am reading about King Ding-A-Ling's powerful elevator that you can take a ride on.
Oh yeah.
I would like to note that I found an article about these that has what seems to be a tagline for the toys: "Goony, lovable, loony little robots."
Of course. Now that one, of course, has to be accidental. Because,
of course.
You know, that's a bit more modern.
Yeah.
By the way, anyone can reference that and I will burst out laughing. I don't know what it is. It's not even that I find the concept funny. I find it quite interesting, actually, but there's something about it being referenced outside of its context that makes me laugh. I was just in polite conversation and a friend of mine just referenced a goon cave for just an offhand joke, and I scream laughed for 5 minutes. It's especially funny if you can get our friend Jonathan to say it.
King Ding-A-Ling's brain descended into his cockpit.
Yes. If you go into his cockpit, you can literally give him head.
I feel like that's a metaphor.
Yeah.
You can have it go, his brain is no longer up in his head, it's down in his cockpit.
Yep. You bring his brain down to his cockpit, then you get another Ding-A-Ling and stick it in his head and elevate that. It's a hell of a thing. The toys are absolute shite, by the way. Some of the cheapest plastic crap I've ever had, and that's saying something.
Sorry, I'm reading the saddest line in this little description about them. Topper Toys declared bankruptcy in 1973, effectively short-circuiting the Ding-A-Ling universe before it found an audience.
By the way, they're called Topper. The Ding-A-Lings didn't have a fucking chance. They didn't have a chance. I'm annoyed that the one Ding-A-Ling I could find is literally the most boring one. Because a lot of them, I was quite fascinated by the designs of them. Some of them look quite neat. Like, they're very cute, very sort of proper, square-headed, retro robots. The Shoe Shine Boy, it's just a bloke with a smudge on his face. I've got what I think is the worst Ding-A-Ling in the world. And it's dirty. I've got a dirty Ding-A-Ling, and the only thing I can do with it is wipe. Ding-A-Lings! From the same decade that brought us Jimmy Savile. I'm done.
Welcome to Podquisition. We're rapidly departing from that bit of the conversation. Who's played stuff this week?
Look, my brain might be with video games right now, but my heart is still with the Ding-A-Lings.
That's fine. It's when we get to anytime the conversation gets to Jimmy Savile, we're moving back to video games.
Absolutely.
That's a line I've got.
I think that's honestly a rule every podcast should have.
I had a whole bit planned about how numb my asshole is. And we just don't have time for that now.
I mean, no, I'm going to be honest. I'm up for sacrificing some video game time to hear about your numb asshole.
Sorry, this is pertinent.
Usually this is not me. I'm all video games, but please tell me about your asshole.
So I mentioned probably on the podcast, or certainly on other ones at least, if not this one, that I have a bidet, which I love.
I've seen it.
Like, it's one of my favorite things in the world. It makes my life so much better. Except for, like, December through early March. Because the water line, it's not connected to the hot water heater in any way, which is good because the hot water in my building is outrageously hot. But it does mean that every time I take a shit now, I'm spraying my ass with near freezing water. Completely numb. Like, you know that state where you have made something so cold that you can't feel anything, and yet you know its presence because of the cold, like, affecting the area around what's numb? Yeah. That's my butthole every, like 6 hours in this house. It's cold. Well, and I spray all the way up in there because I got to clean out.
Just get right up in there, yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Empty it out, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Murder on the Bowl, though, let me tell you. Murder on the Bowl.
Yeah. One of Agatha Christie's lesser-known novels.
So who's played something this week? Who's played things?
I can't even remember.
I've played a couple of things. I know you played a lot, Laura. Why don't you kick us off?
I played at least a couple of things I can talk about. I'll start with one that I don't have a huge amount to say about, but what I do have to say about is positive so far. I started playing Spirit Swap Lo-Fi Beats to Match 3 to.
Oh, I played this when it was in demo or early access sometime last year. Yeah.
I did the same, and the full game is out now, and I've not had a chance to play a lot of it. There is a story campaign, and I've started. The gist of the plot, at least from what I've seen so far, is very basic. It's the things that you do in match 3 with are little ghosts. You're trying to help them buddy up together so they can get on to the next life or whatever. That's your little nighttime job. Sweet, character designs are nice. Let's talk about the mechanics. Mechanically, this is a very standard match 3 game on its surface, in that you can swap at most the position of 2 gems at any one time, specifically horizontally, and if you match 3, they disappear. You get bonuses if you either make more than 3 disappear at a time, either by like doing a swap that makes multiple match 3s, or like a match 4 or 5. That will get you some bonuses, and you get some bonuses if you do a match 3. Things drop down into place, and that sort of cascades and does another match 3. Like a lot of match 3 games, doing those more complicated methods of clearing things off of the board builds up a meter. And it's what that meter functionally does that I think mechanically sets this apart from other match 3s. You are playing as a character who is a witch, and as such, you have access to magic spells that you are able to cast. And doing those more complicated kinds of matching 3 builds up meter that you can do spells with. It seems like you unlock more spells to choose from as you go through the story mode, but initially, an example of one is, if you do this spell, it'll use up a charge of meter and say, clear the top half of the board. So if you're about to lose because of all your gems reaching the top, you get a half the screen board wipe. The thing that mechanically makes these spells interesting is it's not just enough to have meter for them. You have to arrange gems in the match 3 to make a sigil, to make a specific shape, without accidentally creating a match 3, for the ability to do that spell to be active. So the first one you get is a 2x2 square of one colour. You have to have meter from having done the good kinds of match 3, and have like a 2x2 square of one colour available, and like it'll get targeted with like the UI will make it very clear this sigil is live, you could do the spell. You've got it available to do your half-screen board wipe. The reason I find this mechanically really interesting is it sets it apart from something like Tetris Effect, because I kept thinking about Tetris Effect while playing this. If you've not played Tetris Effect, great, wonderful Tetris game, where the bigger amount of line clears you do, you're building up meter, and at any time you can just spend that meter to stop time entirely and have some time where none of your rows are moving to do solves in peace. That mechanic is always available to you. If you've got the meter, you can wait until the last possible moment when you're in dire straits and use it then. The thing that makes Spirit Swap's mechanic feel really different is that it is not realistic for you to preemptively create this 2x2 square of a colour and just leave it sat there for when you're in a bad situation to be able to do your spell. Because doing so would basically mean you would be really limited in your ability to make 3s further down those match 3s further down that column. Because if you accidentally have half of your 2x2 drop down and the other half not, you no longer have your 2x2. So instead of like having this super move that is constantly live and you can just go, I know it's available, at the last possible moment I'll activate it to get myself out of a bad situation, you have to sort of go, I'm 80% maybe of the way to being in trouble. Is now a good time for me to reactively go and make a 2x2 square and activate this power? It's when I feel that I'm about to be in a bad losing situation, I have to scramble. I'm probably going to have to scramble and make the sigil in real time to be able to make use of my meter, rather than being able to just go, I'll have it ready way in advance preemptively. And that does give it a feel of its own in the match 3 space that I think mechanically is enough to make it feel pretty different. The soundtrack is fantastic, as to be expected of a game that has marketed itself around chill lo-fi beats. It has some really good chill lo-fi beats. I've not put enough time into it to have a sense of whether it having a plot is going to feel like an addition I really care about currently, but just on a mechanics front, I like the idea of the spell sigil symbol, and it has carved out a unique space beyond just, this is a match 3 that happens to have nice music. So yeah, that's about as much as I've put together thoughts on that one so far. What about both of you? Either of you played anything you want to chat about?
I'm trying to think if I've played anything other than Dynasty Warriors 3.
I mean, you can talk about Dynasty Warriors 3.
Yeah.
And your wonderful mods.
Alright, well then, I better grab some shit off my desk because we're going to go to Stephanie's. What was I call it? Rom-com dope. There we are.
Wow. I'm surprised that you struggled. Like your memory issues are so bad that one almost slipped past you.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, my ADHD has always managed to forget the good things that I do.
That's true.
To make room for the OCD latching onto every bad thought I've ever had since I was 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, business as usual for me. But yes, I have been playing, it has been mostly Dynasty Warriors 3. I played some other Tecmo Koei ones as well. I've been playing Dynasty Warriors 4 and Samurai Warriors, the first one, which, God, that fucking game. Imagine if every enemy above the most basic regular enemy was on the same level of annoyance as the Medusa heads from Castlevania. And that's your Samurai Warriors. Every slightly elite mook is some form of ninja, and their whole job is to just, like, hit you with a move that sends you flying across the screen, and they'll come at you from off-screen. The problem with a lot of these old Warriors games is they're all like that. I said last week, and I keep bringing it up because the more I'm playing these old school ones, the more annoyed I get at those people who are like, man, Dynasty Warriors is rubbish. Why don't all the little enemies attack you? Why is the enemy AI so bad? Because I fucking played the ones with the aggressive AI, you absolute clowns. You clearly haven't. There is a reason why they treat the generic soldiers as little dumb peons that you can use as a stress ball, that you can use like bowling balls. It's because it's just not fun. I've got my Odin on me right now. I'm trying to get some level 4 weapons for some of the characters, which requires going on hard mode, which is one of the least reasonable hard modes you could ever hope to see in a game, because not only are all of the, not even is the weakest enemy will survive an entire combo string from you. Your entire attack, like 6-hit attack animation, they will tank all of it. They deal massive amounts of damage back, and they all do it. To the point where even nameless soldiers have the same types of ultimate attacks that you do. They can pop off Musos whenever they want. They all surround you. They all backstab you. They hit you with the same character combos, the same attack combos that other characters have, including the charged attacks, including the ones that can knock you unconscious, and the ones that can send you flying into other characters. And that's basic soldiers, all of them doing it at once. It's not fun. When it gets that bad, it's not fun. And Dynasty Warriors 3 suffers from some, and its expansion suffers from some terrible balancing ideas. Like, there are weapon elements on the level 4 weapons that need to be unlocked on hard mode, with requirements that you're never told in-game. It's one of the most egregious examples of guide dang it that you could ever hope to find. You need a guide if you want most of them.
Guide dang it? I'm sorry, guide dang it? I love that.
Yeah, it's
that
not
is
mine.
Wonderful.
It's not mine, but yeah, Guide Dang It is it's on the TV Tropes page.
That's fantastic.
It's great. I really like that one. And yeah, Dynasty Warriors 3 is the absolute king of the concept. And these weapons have fixed stats, which already adds to some of the massive character like disparity between how viable some of them are. And fixed weapon elements. Some have none. There's no reason for them to have none. Some are just shit. Some do electric damage, which makes a very weak electric explosion happen when they hit the ground after hitting them. There's like fire that just does continual damage if you can keep them juggled, which good luck doing that on hard. And then there's the death element, aka the only element, which a very small handful of characters have. It does big proportional damage to officers and insta-kills everything else. Everything else. If you can hit them with it, they die. And on hard mode, where, as I said, even the smallest soldier can tank a full attack string, Death Element is the only element that is worth a shit. which makes about 5 characters out of 70 worth of shit. It's one of the things I definitely change, and I hope one day there is a mod for that, is just put death element on every weapon, so they all become at least viable. But now that we're on mods, one of the interesting things I learned about Dynasty Warriors 3 is once you remove the worst feature in the game, every character becomes so much more usable, to the point where I'm even more baffled by its inclusion. I've always been baffled by its inclusion. I can't remember how much I detailed it last week, but a very brief overview. When you start attacking, you are locked in the direction of where the first enemy was standing when you first hit it. Which means if it gets knocked out of the way, or if it dies, if you keep attacking, which, bear in mind, to do your special charge attacks, you have to input a string of normal attacks first of varying lengths. If they move out the way, if they get knocked out, if they die, you are still in that direction. And you either have to stop and turn around or finish and just try and hit something. And in either situation, on hard, you can watch, because the camera's pulled back enough, you can see about 12 enemies behind you, ready to hit you, if they don't just do it anyway. And I found this mod, quite by accident, on the Muso Warriors Discord, which they had a bit of a bump after I mentioned them in the video. This guy, Michael, has done a bunch of old, he just does, old mods, mods for old Warriors games. And he's fixing them. And it's incredible. And this directional lock is gone. You install this mod, it's like one line, just a little string, numbers and letters. You put it into your sort of patch file, and it's gone. And then all of the characters that feel broken in the wrong way feel usable and viable. And some of the characters with their death element now are broken in the fun way. Because before, a character like Cao Cao, he has his final attack in his combo string, does 3 or 4 wide sweeps. With his 4th weapon, every single one of those sweeps deals instant death to everything that isn't an officer, and huge damage to an officer on high health. And you are stuck going in a direction with that, and you almost never hit a large enough group with it. Now you can, if you miss, you steer the instant death back round at them. It's amazing. And then I play characters like Zhang He, who is quick, and all of his moves are dash him about the map. And it feels like him and many characters were designed for this game, not the game that shipped. They were designed for a game that didn't have one of the dumbest mechanics I have ever seen in an action game. Any action game. Because anyone, that's a bad idea. And I don't think I even have to explain hypotheticals. I think most people could just imagine, like Devil May Cry, where you're locked into the direction of the first thing you made contact with. And that's stupid. Then we apply it to a game where there are, at bare minimum, half a dozen enemies on screen at any given time. And it only goes way up from there. Amazingly bad idea. And it lasted 3 games. I took it off of 4 as well, and I genuinely can't go back. I hadn't modded 4 until yesterday. I went back to it after playing 3 without the mods, and I can't do it. It's ghastly. It was already hard with that locking on system. It's physically, emotionally uncomfortable now. So yeah, these mods, incredible. They took that off. I can pick up items while stood on a horse. Things that weren't accessible to horses in that game, like going upstairs or going up certain hills, now I can do it. They removed the fucking animation from the horse where you stop and the horse takes a long time to skid to a halt before you're allowed to get off it, whereas later games let you just leap off the horse in motion. This now it turns the horse to a dead stop, which does look a bit funny, but it plays better. They've even got stuff that... I tried them and I feel like it slowed it down a bit too much, but they've got patches for draw distance and to stop the thing the PS2 did, where it would fade enemies in and out of existence to save on processing. You can take that off, And as I said on the Jimquisition on Monday, it really hadn't occurred to me that I could just do it and it could be this easy. But once I Googled Red Ninja End of Honor mods and found some, I realised the world is a fucking oyster as far as this is concerned. If they're out there making mods for Red Ninja End of fucking Honor, which I'll talk about that in a... I'm going to stop now because I've gone on a big rant. But incredible. Life-changing. Thank you.
Before we jump to Conrad, I might jump in with one more game. Just because hearing you talk about that has reminded me of an experience I had with one of the things I played this week.
Mm-hmm.
I played some of the... They've done a remaster, remake, fancier looking version of Ninja Gaiden 2 Black.
Oh, I was interested in that because I remember liking that game quite a bit.
I remember liking it back in the day, and I downloaded it because it's on Game Pass on Xbox, and I didn't have a terrible time with it. But it has aged.
Yeah.
And it has aged in ways that I find hard to go back to.
I did feel that way a couple months ago when I very briefly tried the first Ninja Gaiden again.
A lot of it feels very similar to how you're talking about, feeling about the idea of going back to Dynasty Warriors 3 without that mod now. In that character action games of this nature have come a long way in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things about playing Ninja Gaiden 2 that feel way clunkier and more restrictive than that genre has become. And it's kind of hard to go back to a little bit.
Mm.
It's all really little things. The dodge that you have doesn't move you as far away from your current position as a modern dodge would. It doesn't have that same sort of modern sensibility of large dodge with high amounts of invincibility frames. The dodge is barely a step backwards. And that just, it feels like you have very little mobility to get away from a situation where you've trapped yourself in an awkward spot. A lot of your attacks have that feeling of, I started attacking and now I'm really locked in with very little way to cancel out of an attack chain to go to do an attack cancel. A lot of your attacks feel like they're locking you into a direction, which is not great when you're being attacked from multiple directions. The block that the game is constantly, anytime you get hit, the game's it's important to use the block button. Yeah, I know, game. The block is slow to put up. It's way slower to put up than it feels like it should be. It feels like you're fucking pulling up a great shield rather than just, changing position with a bladed weapon. Meaning that, it feels like you can't use it reactively. It feels like you need to hunker down in block and then attack out of it, rather than doing your quick, rapid attacks, throw in a quick block, back to your quick attacks. It's not something that feels like you can quickly throw it into a string of inputs. And a lot of that feels weirdly at odds with how the early weapons that you have access to are designed to be weapons about being, quick and mobile and agile. And it just feels clunkier than if you were playing a game like this that was designed today, you can feel all the ways that these wouldn't be the decisions that you would make with this genre. I played a few hours of it. I picked up, I think the second weapon available is this stick with blades on the end that you sort of stand in position and swirl it around you like Darth Maul with the double-ended lightsaber. And I found myself just standing in place, spinning, having my little defensive circle around me of, if you get in near me, my blade stick will hit you. Because anything else, I would pick up cool-looking weapons. I'd pick up, some bladed claw hands and be like, that's cool. Use it for, 3 minutes and go, yeah, but stuff's getting too close to me, and the dodge and the block really don't feel sufficient. I'd rather just have a thing that keeps the enemy from getting near me in the first place. And that stopped me from wanting to experiment with the weapon selection. And I found a couple of hours in, I just wasn't enjoying it as much as I remember enjoying it back in the day.
You see that?
Which is it's a shame.
Yeah. That's valuable to hear, thank you, because I had seen it and I remember liking Ninja Gaiden 2 especially out of all of them, and I was worried.
It runs nicely, it looks nice, and I'm sure other people will have better mileage than I did, but my experience of it was just... I sat playing it wishing I was playing a modern character action game. I was sat there going, I would have more fun if I uninstalled this and replayed fucking Devil May Cry 5 or something.
Yeah.
It was just reminding me of other games in the same sort of genre that I would today have more patience for.
Yeah, you see, that had confirmed my fears, and it from what you've said, it sounds like I'd feel the same way. I think that does open a conversation to, like, when an old RPG is re-released, we've kind of hit upon some, like, commonly accepted quality of life features that get added into them, whether it's, like, just something as simple as a fast forward button. You know, the re-released Final Fantasies came with fast forward, turning off random encounters, various things, some of which, you know, some people might consider them just utterly trivializing the game, or what have you. The Pixel remasters had, like, customizable rate of XP acquisition, stuff like that. Little things to speed up games that can and were very ponderous in many ways back then. And I think we need to sort of have these conversations about other genres as well. Character action games have come along a very long way.
Yeah.
We should be looking at faster blocking, better cancelling, modern things we're used to, because I remember Ninja Gaiden as a lot more of a responsive, faster thing until I replayed it. And I was like, this is not how I remember it.
There are points in it that capture that feeling. Like, the traversal stuff still kind of feels that way. Like, doing a wall run feels really good in that game still. There's bits of the, like, maneuvering around the world. It's just, when you have to stop and fight an enemy, it loses a lot of that feeling of fluidity. Like, the combat just does not feel as fluid as the fantasy of being a ninja that the game is selling you aesthetically. And I'm sure there are people who would complain if you updated it that it doesn't feel like it used to feel. But for me, as someone that, like, remembers enjoying it, but I don't have, like, the most nostalgia for it specifically. Yeah, you can feel that it's aged.
That is a shame. Still, I bet it's still better than 3.
I mean, probably, yeah.
3 was just amazingly bad.
I was looking at reviews for 3 recently because I'm doing that fantasy critic trying to predict review scores for things. I forgot that game initially, like, you know, Metacritic, it's fucking bullshit, but, like, it's useful sometimes as a metric for, like, where sentiment was. Original release of Ninja Gaiden 3 was a 59 on Metacritic.
Mm-hmm.
It got its, like, fancy re-release on Wii U where they fixed a bunch of shit. It got a 62.
Yeah.
That was it at its peak. The better improved re-release was a fucking 62. I was like, yeah, I forgot quite how rough that game
bad.
Was at the time.
I mean, this isn't the point. But the fact that they did take all the gore out, and the fact that he wasn't cutting limbs off anymore, it was a portent of what the rest of the game would be like. If the game had been better, I wouldn't have minded that so much. Yeah. But it just shows you just how much they were pulling away from what gave the game its identity and its sense of style and character.
And if nothing else, it has been cool. I was surprised and, like, positively delighted to see attack that guy. He's not got an arm now. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's still fun.
Really
what about you?
Dismemberment in those games.
Yeah. What about you, Conrad? What have you been playing this week?
Oh, I have been playing a little bit of Dome Keeper. I haven't played in a couple of years, I think. This is it's a combination defense and mining game where you have a little engineer and you are digging beneath a dome to acquire resources. and bringing them back up to the dome where they can be exchanged for upgrades to your abilities to dig and move or the defensive capabilities of the dome. And at intervals, there will be waves of enemies that attack the dome from the ground or the air, and you'll have to engage in combat with them. There are different types of domes with different types of weaponry. The standard is a laser that moves across the top of it and slows down while it's firing, so you have to execute a little bit of timing to maximize its use. There's a sword one that I really enjoyed in the early access period when I was last playing this. And there's a bunch of other, you unlock stuff as you complete missions, and you have different goals depending on the game type you choose. The primary one that I was familiar with was a relic hunt, where as you're digging around, you're trying to find a specific item somewhere buried in there to drag up and then do a final wave and succeed or fail on at that point. And there's a lot more content in it now, and it was kind of startling to open it up and be faced with a stage select menu that was just completely unrecognizable from what I remembered. And maybe it was there before, but I'm like navigating around the environment while select the options. It's a very annoying way of doing things, if I'm honest, because it seems cute the first time that you're doing that. And then after that, I just want a fucking menu that I can just click around and make settings and not have to navigate a map to set up my game. And that's really all I wanted to say about Dome Keeper, which otherwise remains a very fun and challenging roguelite defense game. It's fun, but I'm so annoyed at having to do this tedious operation to start a game that it kind of makes me not want to play more games of it. And I just a thought, sometimes when you think you're being cute, you're really turning people off. That's all. Just think
I've been
told
about that a lot of times.
Hey-o. It's just one of those, think about the friction that you're introducing with something fun, and try to consider whether or not that's worth it on the balance, I guess. But yeah, Dome Keeper's still good. I still suggest people check it out. It's a fun one. What about you, Laura? What else you got?
I've dipped my toes into a couple of other things, but honestly, I don't feel like I've played enough of them to chat about them on this week's show. I think those are my main things. Have you played anything else, Steph?
Not bits and bobs. Well, I did play some Red Ninja End of Honor. After mentioning it on
yeah, did you download that mod you found for it?
I actually didn't put any mods on it. I was just curious if it's as bad as I remember it.
Is it?
Yep. So Conrad, you play anything else? It's really bad. Just a really shit stealth game. It had a cute idea. You throw this wire weapon out, and I like the concept of wire weapons in games. And on PS2, they were trying something. You'd throw this blade out. It would attach to the enemy, and you had them on basically on a fishing line then. And you could shrun around a tree and loop it back to cut into them with it and stuff like that. And on the PS2, that ain't a shoddy idea. And there was some potential fun to be had. But the game's camera seems like the point of it wasn't for the player to see anything other than up the main character's kimono. And I'm not even saying that speciously, because when you go into a hole, the camera goes up her hole. The game has quite basic graphics, except her panties, which are lovingly crafted. And you can't help the camera will wildly swing to get as much upskirt action as it can. And I genuinely feel that part of the reason why the game is visually not all that impressive, has really wonky physics, bad controls, and just a generally shit everything. It's like if Tenchu was like the most it's a bargain bin version of Tenchu. And I think the biggest reason is because the developers were spaffing off at their desks and were very concerned that we might not see her ass. So, yeah. Didn't do a bad render job on it. Everything else looks like shit. But the actual dumper is quite lovingly sculpted.
At least they had their priorities in order.
They had their priorities straight, Debbie. So, yeah. I don't recommend it. But I have it now. I've got to live with that. So that's about all I really played of any real note.
You played anything else, comrade?
Not that I'm ready to talk about at this point, no.
Well, in that case, shall we chat about a couple of newsy bits for the week?
Let's do it.
Yeah. We've had quite some news about Bloodborne. Not actual Bloodborne, but unofficial Bloodborne this week.
Mm-hmm.
So we Lance McDonald, person who makes does data mining on FromSoft games and Bloodborne and has made patches for them, made a patch a while back that lets Bloodborne run at 60 FPS. And that got cease and desisted in this past week by PlayStation. And now we've got another one to add on that list. You know how a little while back we talked about Nightmare Cart, which it started its life as Bloodborne Cart, and then got a legal threat and had to become legally distinct Bloodborne Cart. Well, that, as we know, came from Lilith Walther, Bunlith, who previously made Bloodborne PSX.
Yeah.
That has now also been given a legal takedown notice. Yeah.
As a matter of disclosure, I will just say that I've been advising Lilith on this as someone who, because a lot of this all started with YouTube takedowns and shit, which looks spurious as fuck to me, having had a look. But hey, so yeah, I've been basically just doing my best to help Lilith out on this. It fucking sucks. It fucking sucks. I consider Lilith a friend, and it fucking sucks to see her having to deal with this shit. And on top of that, first of all, Sony cracking down on things that were done because they are ignoring massive fan demand. Even though I totally understand the mechanics behind why they're doing what they're doing, still sickens me.
Yeah.
And I had really hoped that Bloodborne PSX had been up for a while, that it had gotten away with it, but there is no such thing as getting away with it when it comes to this kind of stuff, unfortunately.
I do think this is the closest a thing can get to getting away with it.
Yeah.
In that it was available for plenty of time for people to get copies, and people will be passing it around between each other forever now. And it will never not be out there.
I haven't actually gotten an update today. Has it progressed past just the YouTube takedown with Bloodborne PSX?
Reading from Eurogamer, the project has been hit by a copyright claim by Markscan Entertainment.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
is that the YouTube
That's
one?
the spurious one. Yeah, Markscan Entertainment is one of those third-party claimers.
Yeah.
I think they are a legitimate business, but like a lot of those third-party claimants, even though they might have legitimate clientele, that does not mean they are not fraudulently claiming things. And there is a chance they might be doing it on behalf of Sony. But Markscan has been known to be spurious. So that was my advice, was like, let's try and hammer on that. Because I believe when Sony's taken things down from YouTube, those claims have been filed by Sony worldwide, or whatever it is they use, like an actual Sony one.
Yeah.
So we will see.
I worry that while Sony was willing to let it stay up, I think it being taken down and then having to step in to allow it back up, I worry that their legal team might consider that a step too much of tacit approval of its existence for them to do it.
Yeah.
That's my concern,
Yeah,
is that we can pretend we never saw it, but if it goes down and we go out of our way to let it back up, that seems too much like we approve of it.
Possibly.
I hope that's not the case,
Yeah.
but that's the concern I have, is that might be how it plays out.
I think in the wake of what happened with Lance McDonald, it's definitely a thing to tread careful about. Looking at it, it does look like this is more of a business as usual YouTube strike. Could be wrong. It probably is. This is better than the alternative, though, as you say, Laura. Like, at least it's not Sony going after the actual game, which is transformative enough. And unfortunately, I don't think like the legal system will ever update to reflect changing media, and certainly not in our favour. But I don't want that project to go anywhere, because that Bloodborne PSX is fucking amazing.
Yeah, there's an element to this that, you know, there are rumors circulating that after the Lance McDonald thing, this is a sign that they're going to announce some sort of remake or remaster around the 10th anniversary.
But I mean, there were those same rumors when Bloodborne had to become Nightmare Car. Like, anytime any action's taken against unofficial Bloodborne projects, everyone's like, this is the time, it's a sign.
Because people are desperate. People are desperate.
Yeah.
They are demanding something that the supplier won't supply. If it is the case, though, and that's something I need to do a video on at some point in general, is the fact that companies have to falsify value for what they're putting out by taking away what's already there, whether it's getting rid of a mod, or when, like, Rockstar got rid of the older versions of GTA when they did the remasters of those games. Like, if you've got to take away, what are you actually offering? And that's something that, this is why, as I argued in my video on Monday, this is why companies don't have such a contentious, frayed relationship with the modding scene, where, yeah, they want to benefit from it, but they also don't want to look as obsolete as they can be when they don't do things. So, even if Sony does bring out what people have been begging for over 10 years, fuck them.
Oh, completely fuck them. Like, it's the worst, the sleaziest part of this, from my mind, is that along with taking away value so that they can sell it themselves, is acts like this also raise the mind share awareness of the product. So they're making news and effectively promoting the product if they do this. And that's fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
There's so many reasons why this is gross and awful. Yeah. And if, setting aside, maybe the Bloodborne PSX thing isn't connected in any way, but just shutting down a frame rate mod, fuck you.
Yeah. And I'll say this. It's not fucking easy to get that Lance McDonald mod running on a PlayStation. It is such a fucking tiny, minuscule number of people for whom that mod is actually applicable and has been helpful.
Yeah.
It's not like something like the Switch that is, like, really fucking easy to mod. You've got to go out, like, at the point that you've gone out of your way enough to have a mod runnable PlayStation, you are a subset of a subset. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's not worth giving a shit about.
Part of it is propagandistic more than anything else. They don't want these lovely little headlines in video games websites that are like, Bloodborne running at 60 FPS. Here's how one user made it possible. Here's how someone who isn't Sony did Sony's job. That's what they don't like. When in reality, what companies like Sony need to do is be fucking grateful. They should be fucking grateful that people still want to play Bloodborne. And, Many people still would, but more people want to play Bloodborne because they want it at 60 FPS and someone did it for them. And that might sound arrogant, when people like Bloodborne anyway. Ask Doom. Ask Doom how important it is to have a modding community that's still interested in you 10 years on, 20 years on, 30 years on. And then look at the way Bethesda tried to edge modders out of Doom modding, like the ungrateful little shits they are. The game industry owes modders a huge thank you. The entire industry owes them. It's not just about fixing the shit they won't fix. It is about keeping those games fresh.
Mm-hmm.
I earlier spent, 15, 20 minutes talking about Dynasty Warriors 3, a 2001 video game that I am playing essentially for the first time. With this mod, it is like playing it for the first time. I think I'd have gotten annoyed and stopped playing by now if not for that mod. I am now collecting the ridiculously difficult fourth weapons on it because it got modded and I love it all over again. They owe modders a debt, the entire industry.
They can't see it that way because they want you to buy the new one. They don't want you forever playing the old one. That's it. They do not care about extending the value unless they are extracting the value from that extension.
I hate that that's a great point. I despise that that's a great point. But you are right. And of course, because they have to have that all or nothing attitude, they will also extend it to the games that they never intend to do anything with, ever. Because content hoarding is a big part of what they do. It's why devs can't get the rights back to games that they want to still make, but the publisher doesn't want to make, but doesn't want to sell back to them because they don't want anyone else to make them either.
It's all about attention. It's the live service problem all over again. It's that you need to have every moment that your consumer is engaging with one of your products be profitable for you. And they don't consider the idea that having these things available are good for the brand in a larger sense, right? That
they never think long term.
Right. Dynasty Warriors is a franchise that needs, at least here in the West, all of the dedicated consumers that it can possibly have in order to remain viable as something to be had here. And what is a part of that is having that product be as available as possible.
Yeah. I mean, to bring up Dynasty Warriors, I mean, I've been lamenting somewhat that as good as the gameplay, the moment-to-moment gameplay in Dynasty Warriors Origins is, that is not a Dynasty Warriors I recognize anymore. And by all accounts, they're never going to make that again. So being able to have the games that got me into the series updated, it does keep those games relevant to some degree. And fuck it, I know that the publishers don't see it that way. The games deserve it. Yep. And the people who worked on the games, I like to think many of those are grateful. If they're not, they should be.
Yeah. Other news, we've got a couple of other bits. You might have seen a clip doing the rounds on social media this past week of I'm gonna very diplomatically and legally safe say the following sentence. Elon Musk gave a salute that a lot of Nazis thought was him doing a Nazi salute, and they felt very emboldened by his gesture that he had done.
And this is the only time I give a shit what a Nazi's opinion is.
Right, legally, I'm not going to say what that gesture was, but a lot of Nazis sure thought it was a Nazi salute.
I'll just add, just to make sure that we're clear and diplomatic here. Elon Musk did a Nazi salute, hailing Hitler like the Nazi he is.
I mean, fair.
My lawyers have just briefed me to say that, sorry.
And then you might have seen a clip doing the rounds of a church leader
Oh,
mimicking that same saluting motion.
It's funny. YouTube was like auto playing, and it showed me a video. Oh wait, no, I did click on it because it looked funny. Yeah, I saw a video of some guy talking about this shit, like moments before we started recording.
Yeah, so you've seen the church leader Calvin Robinson doing that same gesture that the Nazis seem to like people doing.
Yeah.
Turns out he is founder of a gaming website called God is a Geek.
I remember that website.
Yeah, it is a website. I've read good articles on there. They do some good work. There's some good folks there. The entire staff of God is a Geek all walked out in response to not wanting to be associated with someone willing to do a salute that the Nazis enjoy. He's not been a part of the site's editorial team for a while, but he is still listed as the site's owner. He claims he is, in his words, not a Nazi, but, he still did that salute, in his words, as a mockery of hysterical liberals. Good on the team of God is a Geek for basically just going, fuck it, we're leaving, we're just gonna go create our own thing, because we are not gonna... We will throw away the brand we have been working to build, because we don't want to be associated with that fucker. That is... We are a website of Christian people doing game reviews, and we don't want to be associated with that person that we do not feel aligns with what we think Christian values should be.
And, I'll say, having read... I have probably read articles from God is a Geek in the past, but it's not something that's regular reading. But I did do a little browse around of the content on the site, and they are not like some sort of explicitly, directly hammering it, we're Christians writers. If anything, some of the content's a little dry maybe, but it definitely is not pushing hard or being one of those things. So I respect that it's just sort of, yeah, we're Christians. Cool.
Yeah.
And I'm into that. But
also... they have a thing that aligns them, and they just happen to be doing good decent games criticism. Good on them for not wanting to be associated with that.
Yeah, well, but not everybody can just easily walk away from their Nazi boss, and I get that. Yeah. There's a lot of very powerful Nazi bosses out there right now that have a lot of businesses and a lot of money, and it could be difficult for you to extricate yourself immediately from that. But if you can, please, by all means, show these people that they are not welcome and that you can't support them.
It is terrifying to see that someone can very clearly do a Nazi salute and people are denying it happened when we all saw it. And it is terrifying that there is this push, and in some areas it's being successful, to not have Nazism be this shameful, disgusting, vile thing that we want to root out like an infestation. But anything that continues to hammer home that truth is good. So yeah, absolutely good on that staff of God is a Geek.
Yeah.
Good on them doing that, because it was never true, but especially these days, you can't hail Hitler for a goof. There's no such thing as being a Nazi sarcastically.
Yeah. In other news of people being terrible, Peter T. Ackman, the co-founder of Treyarch, the studio that works on a bunch of the Call of Duty games, had to plead guilty and take a deal after piloting a drone during the LA fires back in January, in which his drone damaged a firefighting aircraft.
Fucking assholes. Fucking assholes flying their drones in airspaces that they shouldn't be. I'm glad he is paying a $65,000 fine. It's not enough. It's not enough.
Yeah, he's got to pay $65,000 for the repair of the firefighting aircraft and do 150 hours of community service for firefighting relief efforts.
How many millions does this co-founder of fucking Treyarch have? He should be rebuilding the homes of everybody there who had the possibility of not getting their house saved by this fucking plane. Every house that was in the working zone for this plane, he should be paying for the fucking repair of.
This is a man who had enough money to go, you know what, I'm not at risk of the fires, but you know what would be cool? Fly my drone around, get a cool look at them. Let's go have a look at what's going on. Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't it be cool to be a little gawker just staring at everyone losing their homes? Hee hee hee. Fuck him. Stay the fuck away if people are doing important work trying to save lives.
Yeah.
It's maybe not the time for a little go fly your toy around. Lastly, I think this is the last one we'll do this week. In a story I never thought I was gonna fucking read, we're getting a TV show based on Quantic Dream's Beyond Two Souls, with Elliot Page working on production.
Huh.
Which, for any of you who don't remember the bullshit that went down with this back in the day, back in 2013, Beyond Two Souls, a game that Elliot Page starred in alongside Willem Dafoe, Elliot Page famously did not fucking like working on this, or like working with, what's Quantic Dream man's name? I forget his fucking name. David Cage. Because there was a whole bullshit thing around, for some reason, a nude shower scene was created and was findable in the game files without, permission having been granted for that, leading to videos of, there's a video of Elliot Page naked in the shower, which, not fucking cool. There was legal action around it at the time. It was a whole thing. But apparently, that is, to a certain degree, water under the bridge, it would seem, in that Elliot Page is now taking the lead on adapting Beyond Two Souls for TV.
I mean, maybe it was just a case of Elliot being like, I think the only person I can fucking trust is me.
Yeah, I like the thought of, look, I had a bullshit time with this thing, but I think there is merit to the work.
Yeah.
I would like to kind of revisit it, but I have some creative power to do it in a way I'd be happy with. Yeah. As a way to not have it be a project that just sits as a thing you have negative associations with, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess we don't know how strong a negative connotation Elliot ever had with it, going on. We knew it had happened, and we knew Elliot, what was it? Was it a lawsuit?
There was a lawsuit, yeah. There was a lawsuit, and I believe there were statements at the time about it that were not flattering.
Yeah, but there's not necessarily any indicator that Elliot's ever had any ill will towards the game. He might have just been perfectly okay with the game's existence, or wants to take charge of it and make it a positive thing. Very interesting. If they're doing a TV show, that means they're going to have actual writers. So that would be good. We might actually see a good Quantic Dream story.
So I've double-checked the specifics. There was something specifically in Page's contract for Beyond Two Souls that specifically said there would not be any nude model or new scenes of his character. And then David Cage specifically hired a body double to make that nude model.
That is fucked.
So David Cage was specifically implicated in doing a thing that Page had written into his contract. This will not happen. Also, as a reminder, this is less definitive and more public speculation of why Page and Cage might not get on well. Shortly after this, a bunch of stuff about David Cage, some very unflattering quotes he had made surfaced, including, "I don't make games for fags," and "all the women in my games are whores." that were not well received.
Cool guy.
I still remember the story of him weeping openly in court when this stuff was brought up, making a big victim play of himself.
Yeah, so that's important context. Cage is apparently to some degree involved in this TV show. He is quoted as saying he was absolutely thrilled to collaborate again with Page.
I bet he was.
Yeah, like, I'm curious to see what can be done revisiting this, because honestly, of the Quantic Dream narratives, I do think that Beyond Two Souls is it's the narrative that I think holds up the best. And I think it's the one that has potential to do something with still. But yeah, fucking be less of a dick this time, Cage. Don't be a dick.
Well.
Yeah. So that's this week. I think that'll do for this week.
Okie dokie. Well, from Elliot Page to a page turner, Laura, you write books, as well as many other things. Maybe you could tell us about those, please.
I do stuff. You can find me at Laura K Buzz pretty much everywhere. I am still doing Twitch streams Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, trying to reclaim some of my old speedrunning records. I've reclaimed all of my Cooking Mama Cookstar records. I reclaimed the Yuto single baby 80% record in Babysitting Mama.
Fuck yeah.
I got one big record I got to reclaim, which I might have already retaken it by the time you hear this, or it might be the next few streams I'm doing, is the All Babies record in Babysitting Mama, which is 3.5 to 4 hours per attempt at that speedrun. And if you've ever seen me speedrun that game, 3.5, 4 hours in, my mind is turning to mush by the time I'm getting toward the end of that speedrun. So if you want to see me lose my mind in real time, twitch.tv/LauraKBuzz. Other than that, check out YouTube, youtube.com/LauraKBuzz. This week there is the announcement of the information for the Accessibility Summer Showcase. It's coming back in June again this year. We've got some info on that'll be up on YouTube. There is another video of me going back through Wandering Sun, the anime that I watched in one sitting 15 years ago and came out as trans that night. I'm slowly doing my rewatch series of that. Laura K Buzz, you'll find all the stuff I'm up to. What about you, Conrad? Where are you at on the internet?
Oh, you can find me at Conrad Zimmerman on Blue Sky. You can hang out with me on Twitch at twitch.tv/thatconradzimmerman. I stream on Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays. You can buy anti-capitalist propaganda and Jimquisition merchandise at mercenarycreative.com. Got some new stuff coming in. Got some old stuff coming back in that I haven't had in a while, so go check that out. And everything that I do online gets supported through Patreon at patreon.com/fistshark. And you know who else has a Patreon? Stephanie Sterling.
That is correct. Patreon.com/Jimquisition, which supports this podcast and the Jimquisition video series and the reviews written on the Jimquisition.com. They're a bit slow at the moment, but that's just because of the game industry's release schedule. They should be picking up soon. I've got no wrestling dates in pen at the moment. I do have stuff lined up, but one I was really looking forward to in March, the entire show has been pushed to April, so that's probably when the wrestling stuff's going to pick up. But in the meantime, in less than 10 days now, Date Everything will be released, and that will be my first...
No, that got delayed.
It's been delayed to June.
I should check the release schedules of my own games. Rather, my own.
Sorry, I only know about this because of the fantasy critic I'm involved in. That's the other reason I know it got delayed.
Yeah, it popped up on social media for me a little before the show.
Oh, I've been shitting myself for like 2 days when I remembered it was coming out soon. I've been anxious for ages.
I'm really sorry I didn't think to tell you. I assumed you'd known.
Yeah, I just sort of, I'm not in regular contact with the team because I've done my job. So I just put my feet up and I was like, right, job done. Never have to check up on that again. February 14th, you've got it. When a video game gets a release date, a video game comes out on that date. So I'll see you in February, lads. I should have remembered the industry I'm in. Yeah, okay then. Don't worry about it. I've got more game content and stuff coming soon. Some of it I cannot talk about. But I'll have news in the future. And that's that. Thank you all so much for listening. We will see you next week. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.